Jedi Hill experienced success leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, and then took a turn to the downside like many other investors during that tumultuous period. Now, after returning to the investing space, he is making incredible progress and is quickly growing his business to include investments in multifamily apartments and mobile home parks. He believes our current market is full of opportunities, but people are getting taken because they don't know their numbers. All right, Sit Room executives, so welcome back to another episode. I am very pleased to have with us today Mr. Jedi Hill. And, we actually had a really, really interesting conversation here over the past 20 minutes about, his knowledge and things with regards to quantum physics and some of the really interesting projects that he's working on. Very, 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 very knowledgeable individual. And he's got a wealth of experience that he's going to share with us today here with regards to real estate. So without further ado, Mr. Jedi Hill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Dion. I greatly appreciate it. So where would you like to start today?
So why don't we just go ahead? I mean, just amazed at, the wealth of knowledge that you have and just across different subjects. So why don't we just go ahead and tell people about your background first and then how you ended up in real estate?
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit different than most people. Grew up in the country. So I got to live in abundance, roaming the hills with the berry bushes and everything else as a kid. My dad started teaching me contracts when I was 6 years old, when it was really, just his way of getting child labor, He had me and my younger brother dig a ditch outside of the house so we could put a post, fill it with cement to build an addition onto our house. So he was teaching me about how to do contracts and, if you didn't make your deadlines and all this stuff all the way back then at 6 years old. 7 years old, after that next spring comes in, we've already dug the hole, we set the post. My dad, my uncles, myself, we built a complete addition to our house that doubled the square footage of the house in a single day.
Wow.
Did everything from the floors, the roofing, the walls. All that was left was to put in the kitchen cabinets.
Wow, that's impressive.
For the next day. So I've seen how quick it could work. So I've grown up with the construction side. To give me my varied knowledge, when I was 8 years old, I had a lisp, was dyslexic, had just graduated speech therapy as the school year was about to end. Then I was down at my grandparents'. They took us to a park. I did a backwards handspring on a set of monkey bars, and I bit off my tongue.
Wow.
It was literally just hanging by a little thread. So I had an involuntary vow of silence for a few months. I'll save all the gory details for those who want to read my book. But I read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica that summer because I was at my grandparents'. They didn't really have TV, and they didn't have anything other than the Encyclopedia Britannica and the Bible. And the Bible bored me at that point in my life. So, and then, as I kept growing up, I learned about construction. I've done everything from foundations to roofing, everywhere in between. I've managed small hotels, got into real estate, bought my first house before my 21st birthday, back in 2003. Did some stuff out in Colorado, worked with some land developers, building developments out there. And, of course, had the issues back in 07, 08, like everybody else did, filed bankruptcy, got out of it, and just started getting back into it here the last year or two. And, building up bit by bit and teaching others how to do the same.
All right. So I wanted to, and I mentioned this earlier, can we circle back to the experience, the development deal that you had leading up into 2008? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that experience and what you learned from it?
Oh, that was fun. I was helping my buddy Steve do through it. He was paying me quite well. So I wasn't, the name on the titles or anything. I was, helping coordinate construction workers, things like that. And I was also helping do the books. I actually got to see how through this, find out where his other partner was stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from the company.
Wow.
By auditing the books, which was quite an experience to learn. And, it taught me how much you have to pay attention and really choose your partners in this business wisely. I can't emphasize that enough. If you're going to go in business in real estate, do your due diligence, figure out your partners, make sure you have good contracts, because you got to protect yourself. But land development's fun. It was out in Colorado, which is very mountainous areas. And they were having to plane and flatten sections of land so you could build up the mountainside. So it's not like here in Ohio where it's all kind of just flat and you can just put a foundation and go. You actually had to have crews and excavation and like reshape the landscape into different tiers to put houses on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you said, and so with that project, like what happened with that project later on?
That one actually went through and did all awesome. I had staged some stuff. I had some real estate back here in Ohio. And, as the market was starting to crash, because it actually hit a year earlier in Ohio, in the part of Ohio I was in before it hit other parts, because factories were starting to shut down and people were losing their jobs. I lost my renters that I had in it. And with being clear across the country, I didn't understand, because I was just dealing with the residential at the time, not the multifamily like I'm into now, property management companies, things like that. I was trying to do this all myself from across the country. So, big mistake in real estate. Do not try and do this business on your own. You have power teams for a reason to not run into these issues. But I ended up losing the houses and filing bankruptcy back then. Got out of the market for several years, and just paid cash for everything, which I don't recommend for people doing. Especially now with the low interest rates, if you have good credit, you want to be leveraging it every which way you can. Your mortgage brokers are your best friend.
All right. Okay. So that makes sense now. I was actually thinking, I thought originally that the actual development deal that you had worked on,
the development got done about 2006 is when that was done.
Okay.
So I was still doing that because I was transitioning more at that point anyways, focusing on massage and holistic healing. And I just had, the few rentals in that and just, left it for the residual, because nobody could have predicted the crash back then, way it was going. And with what I know now, I'm actually really excited for this crash with the coronavirus.
Okay.
This is where fortunes are going to be made if you pay attention.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had bought some multifamilies, and actually you're working on a 12 unit right now. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the 12 unit I'm working with my honey as my partner, because she has better credit than I am, so it just makes life easier to flow to get lower interest rates. Because hard money works, but you lose a lot of the profit for those fix and flips when you're at 15 to 18% interest rate.
No, wow, yeah.
Well, that's as that's what the standard in the industry is, right? It's for something you could make 25, 30 grand. By the time you take out the interest, you're making like 10 grand for a flip profit. And it's like, that's a lot of work for just a little bit of money.
Yeah, exactly.
So with this particular 12 unit, it has room where we can expand it to another 3 to 4 units in the back of it. Big empty space. So I'm really excited for that. So you have a value add there. And the owner is like 70 years old, had 2 back surgeries, so very motivated seller, which is, as you know, a huge key in this industry. The more motivated the seller, the better. So getting just a steal price on it, and it's 16.5 cap rate.
Oh, wow.
as is, 12 units for 360K.
Okay. Are all the unit, what's the occupancy like?
Fully occupancy actually has a waiting list. It is the only small apartment complex in the area around it. And like they just got a new Amazon plant. There's the new Lordstown Motors, which is an electric truck company. I forget one of the paint companies or whatever. And there's several other factories right near there. So there's plenty of work. There's a need for more housing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually going to be working on that one afterwards because there's an adjacent property after we close this one up that I'm going to look to get so we can expand and build another apartment complex right beside it.
Okay. Yeah. So that I take it that was the other development thing that you had mentioned, the construction.
Yeah, I worked with different construction companies. Like in the past, I'd worked with Unique Home Solutions, had actually built their marketing department.
Okay.
Which was cool. They're the largest home improvement company in Indiana. I trained with them there and then came back to Ohio and did everything from helping put in the phone system as we're still getting this building set up to writing the scripts that they still have on the walls till this day and doing the event marketing. And I made them over $1.5 million the first year I worked with them that they could track, not counting everybody I trained to work with too. So it's kind of nice seeing it from the construction side and, going more towards sticking with just the white collar and like other people can do the manual work.
So another thing that that we talked about was you're also looking at even more than just multifamily too, that you said that you're looking at taking down a mobile home park that I think you already have an existing offer on. So yeah, what was the thought process?
Yeah, I've got the LOI on that and I'm just waiting for them to send back the final contract, hopefully this week. So I won't go into all the details on that because it's still up in the air. But what's cool with this one, when you're dealing with mobile home parks, one of the biggest issues is a lot of them have their own septic systems. So you have to deal with the EPA, which is a complete headache and can totally kill a deal because some of those systems can be hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace. So word of warning there. Luckily with this one, it's actually tied into city water and sewer. So I don't have to deal with that. It's got 17 trailers on it right now. We're negotiating an extra piece of land so we don't have to deal with the easements for driving through, which is what slowed this one down a little bit, which rezoning is an interesting thing. I haven't had to deal with that one yet. But it's a fun adventure, but it's got room. I can add another 14 to 15 trailers on it, and it's already got 9 of the pads poured.
Okay.
So the owners, yet again, older couple, and they were just adding, like 1 trailer a year to it and slowly expanding. But it's purchase price $540,000. It's got a $55,000 NOI. So right at that beautiful 10 cap, which in this market, there's nothing in the country that's worth less than a 10 cap, period. You're a fool if you're buying it. But with that extra expansion, looking at the different trailers, we should be able to take the NOI to 120 to 130,000 within the next year. Wow. Refining it out and doing a different syndication, unlike Grant, where he's trying to take all these fees right up front. The guy's actually refinancing them out, paying the stockholders back or the investors back and giving them like 10% indefinite on the properties, which is a really cool way to do it.
You're talking about Tim Bratz?
Yes, Tim Bratz.
Okay, okay, got
it. His brother actually lives right here in Cleveland.
Okay.
But my honey's friends with his brother, which I didn't know, and it's like, really, honey, how are you not telling me about these people?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how small of a world and how connection things are. But yeah, I like the Tim Bratz model. You get the value add, you fix them up, you refinance them out, and then you use that extra capital to just grow and invest.
Yeah.
So it's like we've got out of the single families and moving further into the multifamily. And with where the market's at, I feel bad for anybody that has a single family house right now, because it's going to make 2008 seem like Candyland, just
Mm-hmm.
sunshine and rainbows in comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are already now, it's at Goldman Sachs was saying a third of the country will be unemployed or more
Mm-hmm.
by the end of this month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Like,
crazy. In the past 2 weeks alone, last week, 6.6 million, previous 3.2 million. They're projecting what, another 3+ million this week. Crazy.
yep. Yeah, the Democrats had to do complete hysteria, shut down the economy to get us back down to the high point of the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Um,
I was going to ask you about, the mobile home park deal that you're working on, and not like the details, but just kind of like, because you just mentioned the Tim Brotz model. So as a follow-up, are you looking at syndicating that, or how are you working that, JVing or?
this one, I'm working with a mortgage broker and doing, with these nice relief loans, going for a nice business line of credit to cover some of the extra capital. If not, I do have a couple investment partners that I can call in if the first method falls through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice having the private money lined up just in case, but with some of the access to these things for the disaster loans, my broker thinks he can get us the extra needed in the line of credit for this. So I don't even need a partner, most likely, which I'm excited for. And then this will give me, because the way I was looking at it, it's going to take around $300,000 to $350,000 to actually update the park to its full potential.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be about $900,000 in, but then the property will be worth between 1.3 and 1.5 million. So we'll be able to refi it out, pull a couple extra 100,000 into our pocket right away, and then have that to start working on then getting into the syndications with other people.
Okay. So just so that way I understand as well, and even perhaps some of our listeners that aren't really familiar with the whole mobile home park, this investment model. So you mentioned that there were 9 other slabs that were already laid currently by the existing ownership, right? So what exactly is the play? Like, the play is, so you have this plot of land, right? And you set up the slabs. Do you actually have to buy the mobile homes and you put them on yourself and then lease them out, or how does that work?
Well, there's 2 options for this. Like with lot rent here on this one is $300 a month per plot. Some of the trailers are park owned. So I have 2 options. I can do, as you said, and I will do this for some of them, where I just go and buy the trailers, have them moved on, put down, and then bring in people under a lease option.
Mm-hmm.
That's, a 5 or a 10 year to actually get them working on buying the trailer back. And then they'll still just have lot rent after it's paid off. Mm-hmm. So it's a way to force the appreciation. The other option, I know there's one other luxury trailer park nearby that has a higher lot rent. So one of the thoughts I've had is offer to pay the moving costs for like the $3,000 to $5,000 to move their trailer from one trailer park to another, if they, pay like a year in advance and sign up to keep their trailer there for the rest of their lives, basically.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: like, what? Because the more I think about it, I'm trying to figure out what kind of, like, why choose a mobile home park community versus multifamily. And I'm not saying for you, I'm looking at the actual demographic, like the resident.
It's affordable housing. It gives people that feeling of ownership. Because, you're still paying lot rent, just like, but, even when you own a house, you still have property taxes, have to pay city water, sewer, and all this other stuff. So it's like you still have bills even when you own a place. But you actually get to own your trailer for most people.
Mm.
And the way they're built for now, some of them, they're honestly better construction than a lot of these single family homes. I know Ryan Homes here in Ohio. God, 20 years ago when I was doing construction work, and the dad still owned the company, they had actually done good work. But when we were looking for this triplex here we're in, I inspected one of their homes. The home was less than 3 years old, and it literally going from the foundation outside, checking the cracks for the drywall all the way across down to the foundation on the other side. The house was literally just splitting in half in 3 years.
Wow.
And this was on flat ground, no fault lines or anything weird like that. But it's just, so much of them are cheaping out in the construction. So I honestly like taking something with better bones and fixing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 12-unit apartment complex that's set to close here in a couple of weeks, just waiting for, the final inspections and appraisers to finish it up. It's built in the 1940s, solid brick building. So, and they're renting out most of the apartments for $5 to $525 a month for a 2-bedroom. And it's because most of them were paying cash, and it's just, the old landlord didn't want to keep up on the maintenance. And I'm going to gut most of those units one at a time, fix them back up, and rent them back out for $750, $800 a month.
So they've got like a pretty decent rent bump there on those units, huh?
Oh, yeah. And you're looking at a 50% rent increase potential, plus the ability to add another 3 to 4 units.
That's right.
And it's already at between a 16 to 17 cap rate, which in this market is hard to find.
So
at least before the virus.
Yeah, before. So what would you say would be kind of like one of the biggest like challenges that you've personally encountered over the years?
Getting the direct to seller. When you're trying to deal with all these wholesalers and things like that, so many of them are trying daisy chains now. Or like when you're looking at the apartment complexes, they have management companies and they're fighting you to actually get your information to get to the seller. Because you can try sending mail to them, but they're just bombarded with stuff and don't read it. So it's like, it's been actually, I've done better than using the tech to find the phone numbers and everything like that, like your Reonomies and your PropStream and all these other softwares. They're cool. They have some information, but just building your network of people has been what's helped me overcome it the most. Start finding those pocket deals, and it's like, hey, this buddy's telling this buddy that he's about to sell his place, and it gets down the grapevine. It's like, hey, this buddy over here will buy it from you.
Yeah, it seems as though there are just so many wholesalers now. I mean, even before like a few years ago. And you're right. The craziest daisy chain I think that I've seen, I think it had like how many people in between? I think there were like 7 or 8, people in between.
Oh yeah. Well, even like with this one for the apartment complex, I had someone try to sell me the apartment complex after I already had it under contract directly through the seller.
Wow.
Because I saw the and patience is a huge thing with this. The property had been on the market. It got taken back off while they updated a couple of the units because the prior tenants had trashed it and they wanted to get it rented back out to have it full occupancy to sell it. So it got taken off the market, and I happened to be talking to the selling broker that is like, hey, this one's about to go on the market in like 3 days. It's still off market. And it's like, yes, I've already looked at that. Give me the paperwork. Let's go.
Oh man. Yeah, that's interesting. That kind of reminds me of a story too, where we actually had a property under contract. This was a couple years ago. It was a single family fix and flip. And I got a call from a guy, and he was just like, I want to buy the property. And I was like, okay, well, we can talk numbers, right? And then he called after our first conversation. He called me back the next day, and he's like, why? How is it that you have a contract on a property that I already have a contract on? I'm like, what are you talking about? I've had this contract for like a couple weeks now, and we're supposed to be closing on it in like 3 more weeks or something. It was like really close, we're close to the closing date. And I mean, in the end, we ended up just kind of basically walking away from it because it just got kind of really, really messy. And I'm not really sure how this guy ended up getting some sort of a contract on it, but he did. You know, really, really quite surprising. I'm not sure what was going on with your guy, but whether or not he was just like telling a tale or what happened.
Well, with this one, we had actually, the realtor and that had gone, and he actually did know the owner. And the owner had talked to him a couple years prior about selling it, and it had still been like listed and stuff, but he didn't have any contract or anything on it.
Oh, okay.
Because, most of these contracts expire 30 to 90 days, after it's like they're not a permanent thing. And he was just trying to sell it again. And, it's like, no, dude, it's already gone.
Yeah.
Ended up talking to the owner, getting it all straightened out. But, it was just those little headaches along the way. And, oh, my God, the wholesalers are ruining the market.
Mm-hmm.
They really are, especially in the Cleveland area, because they're putting stuff under contract that should not be under contract.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting, and I know these numbers may seem small to people in other parts of the country, but like in the east side of Cleveland, they'll put a house under contract and try and sell it for $25,000, where the after retail value is only $45,000 and it needs $50,000 put into it for repairs.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, no, like they've been scamming people, and that's why people get taken in this market is they don't know their numbers, they don't know the due diligence.
Yeah. So what would be like a key piece of advice you'd have for newer people that are looking at getting into the business?
Learn the math. It's simple, elementary math you should have had by the time you were in 2nd or 3rd grade. And just be a numbers person. Like with the multifamilies, like don't even look at anything below a 10 cap. Because by the time you add in debt service and, most of these people are lying on their numbers, trying to inflate their numbers anyways, when you go through the due diligence, if it's stated as a 10 cap, it might only be an 8.5 or a 9 when you actually get through the due diligence, and it's going to be a very tight margin that you're going to have to, do work on to get it back up. But if you try and start at it an 8 or a 7, you're not even going to cover debt service, and you're going to be in the hole from day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless you have something and you're getting interest rates at like 2% interest only or something insane. And I don't know how some of these people are doing it without going in the hole, because the numbers don't work. Unless it's like A class, some of those A classes where it's completely stabilized. There's no maintenance that needs done. There's nothing that needs done. And it's 400 or 500 units. So there's enough they can take a tighter margin on. But for smaller places, anything under 100 units, you're losing your butt if you don't keep that cap rate up.
Okay. So what would be a good, nice piece of reading material that you would recommend to people?
Well, as we were mentioning before, because I'm the mindset is where it's at. There is my book, Alchemy the Master's Path, that you can download at alchemythemasterspath.com for free. It goes everything from quantum physics to neuroscience and psychology on how to reprogram your mind so you can get that investor's mindset and overcome your fears, build your confidence, things like that. Also, big fan of Bruce Lipton, his Biology of Belief. Then for the one that got me into the multifamily that I was really impressed, he actually gives more in his book. But like I've taken real estate courses up to $25,000, and Dave Lindahl's Apartment House Riches gave more of what you need for due diligence and the numbers in that than a lot of the paid real estate courses I've seen.
Okay. So if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you, how would you suggest they reach out to you?
You can reach me on Facebook, Jedi Hill, or some of the other social media at Alchemist Jedi. Visit the alchemythemasterspath.com, get the book, but you can also just give me a call, 978 the Jedi. Leave a message. That's my Google Voice. 978-843-5334. So thank you.
All right. Well, I mean, this has really been a pleasure, having this conversation, especially the conversation before the conversation was wonderful. I really hope that people, you guys really should reach out to him, and he's got a wealth of knowledge to share and a lot of really interesting kind of life goals and projects that he's working on. So definitely you should connect with him.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Dion.
Same here.